Welcome to Between State Lines.
All right. Between State Lines episode. Are we on episode 5 or 6 now?
I think it's 6.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's crazy. We're more than halfway there to 10 double digit episodes.
Wild.
So, when I get the video uploaded to YouTube, Stephanie told us last week she would have the skeleton on standby in the background, but unfortunately, circumstances have changed a little bit, so we're waiting another week for that to appear in the backyard.
Yeah. I upset my uncle, and so I we'll see what happens. I just haven't picked it up yet. I've been a little scared, honestly. He's gonna be so mad. I kind of
You'll have a story to tell.
Oh yeah, I'm sure maybe he'll come tell his own story.
He could
Especially
be a
since
guest in the podcast.
yeah, yeah. Oh, we'll see what happens. Like if I'm still around next week.
So my brother is in town this week, and of course, with him, he decided to bring COVID.
Oh,
So all of us have COVID in the family, which is awesome. He's the sickest, and then my daughter has it too, and she's been under the weather, but not too terrible. But whenever he comes into town, and when he's not bringing COVID with him, him and I like to watch not haunted, horror movies. So this past week, it's been like slasher films, and in particular, films about haunted houses that have gone wrong.
okay. I like this. That sounds like fun.
So in the first one we watched, it's called Haunt, and it's about these I think it's 6 friends who decide to they're driving down the road and someone's following them. They pull off the road and they see a sign for a haunted house. They drive into the parking lot, go to the door, and really sketchy looking place run by, of course, a clown at the door. Um, Always a damn clown.
Oh,
Um, they surrender their cell phones, of course, as you would do to some random place. Surrender your cell phone, and lo and behold, they go through the haunted house, and one by one, they get like butchered off and like murdered. And I think, spoiler alert, 2 of them survive the end of it. But like, I really don't think they should have. They were that dumb to do the haunted house on the side of the road. Like, I think you deserve to die at that point.
yeah. Is this side of the road and middle of nowhere?
And middle of nowhere.
Awesome.
Not only that, there was no sign. The sign was not lit up, and then magically they pull off the side of the road and it lights up. I'm like, these are all bad scenarios.
Yeah, very suspicious. Very like no. I
Instantly.
I'm weary of ones that I know of and are quite famous. I can't imagine going to a surprise haunted house. Like, okay, that's how the serial killers just like lure you in. Easy bait. And then you surrender your
So
cell phone? Who's ever done
you
that?
see, who does that? I've never ever like if they ask me to, I just lie and say I don't have it. But I'm never gonna give my cell phone up. That's dumb.
I don't even care if I don't have service. I am not surrendering my cell phone. Good one.
No. um, so I was a little curious, and I've heard of this other haunted house before. It's called McKinney Manor. They're in Kentucky. They've been shut down for a while, but they used to be a haunted house. Except like this haunted house was not really like jump out and scare you. It's basically just torture you until the point where you can't take it anymore. And it's like a 2-day torture fest. You're like in one of the scenarios, you're locked in a cooler with like water up to your face. So you can breathe, but like just barely breathe. And um you have to sign a waiver saying you won't sue them afterwards. And it's really, really freaking insane.
That sounds insane. Like, just do naked and afraid if you really want to be that scared. Uh, in like in a cooler? No, no. One time I slept in my closet growing up with all my stuffed animals as my bed, and woke up in the middle of the night and it felt like a crypt. Like I was like, where am I? Like I remember seeing weird shadows on the walls because I left it kind of open so I could crawl out if I needed to. But there's a dresser there, so I would have like had to go up a little bit. No, it felt like I was in a coffin. I was not okay with this. I can't imagine being in a cooler. You're not getting any sleep. You're not comfortable. And you sign up for this for like 2 days? Pass.
Yeah. And I think like there was a prize. There's like a $50,000 prize if you made it through the entire process. And I think he got like sued for like fraud because someone actually made it through, and then he like basically said, "Oh no, you gave up. You said the safe word. You gave up. Like you tapped out." And so he got sued for that. But um, at what point is it less scary and more just like a glutton for punishment, like torture? Like I feel like it's not scary anymore if you are just getting obliterated.
No, you're just into that, I think. I don't know. That sounds terrible. That sounds absolutely terrible. Like I think that at a certain point I'm like, okay, a little money is involved. Um go do like Survivor, Naked and Afraid, compete against other people. Like that sounds more of a challenge. Here it was like, how much can I withstand? It turns out I like this stuff. I don't know. That sounds awful.
Yeah, so he got shut down, but he also got arrested recently for I think assaulting his girlfriend. It's unrelated to the whole like for whatever reason they found no wrongdoing with his little torture house. I'm like, how do you find? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, the people who are doing it feel like they were, I don't know, they were into it. And then him, what did he get out of it?
Personally, I think he's probably a secret like serial killer or something.
Yeah, that
Something
reminds me
shady.
of like the Israel Keys stories. And that's just so scary because like not having certain targets, like you, he had like kits all over the country apparently. I don't know. It sounds so scary. And then I don't know if you listen to the podcast. I think that it was Radio Rental that they talk about like somebody's mishap with seeing Israel Keys and then like being like, oh, weird feelings. And then later on seeing like his mugshot and being like, that was the guy that I saw. I can't imagine being that person.
You know, I think someone at one point saw the Zodiac killer, and the same thing. They saw him like either it was Zodiac or the Golden State Killer, where the police like they talked to him, they had him right there, and then like he just walked away because they didn't know he was doing anything wrong. Like they were that close to getting him, and they couldn't. Like, can you imagine being that person, that cop that could have busted this dude, this really awful man, and you just let him get away?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about that because I used to live off Highway 20 in Oregon, and they had the Highway 20 killer. I can't even think of what he was called at this point, but it was before my time, I believe. But it was like you could just come in contact with somebody like that and not have any idea. Especially in this day and age, it just feels like there's so many more. And I know it's probably just the influx of information out there, but how easy would that be? And just be like, oh, I grew up with this person, or I came in contact with them and they seemed like they were kind of strange. Ooh.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many psychopaths you've encountered, like just on a daily basis, passing them by throughout your life.
Yeah. And does society like is it the perfect combination to breed psychopaths?
So that brings me to the topic of I think this episode should be about creepy unsolved mysteries, like the spookiest ones that I could find on the internet that really have been unsolved to this day.
Sounds great.
So the first one, it takes place in, of course, your favorite state, Washington.
Of course.
On Thursday, December 12th, 1985, a toddler was spotted wandering unaccompanied around a Kmart store in Spanaway, Washington, with no parent or guardian in sight. When authorities approached the child and tried to ask her who she was or locate her parents, the only thing she could say was, "Mommy is in the trees." A photo was placed in the local paper, and the toddler was soon recognized as Crystal by her maternal grandmother, Louise Conrad, who took her into her care and noticed that Crystal appeared pretty shaken and disturbed, perhaps by something that she had seen in the recent past. So the question was, where was Mommy? Well, 2 months later, the body of her mother, Diana Robertson was discovered deep in the forest around Elbe, Washington, with 17 stab wounds and a tube sock tied around her neck. Nearby, an abandoned 1982 Plymouth pickup truck was discovered covered in bloodstains, with a handwritten note on the dashboard simply saying, "I love you, Diana." The truck belonged to her partner, Mike Reamer, who was an outdoorsman and a trapper who often spent time in the woods, in those specific woods. However, he was nowhere to be found. Initially, they thought he was the one who did it, because 2 months prior, he had been arrested and cited for domestic assault and malicious damage after kicking in her door and basically abusing the hell out of her. They connected her murder to a double murder that occurred in the same woods 4 months earlier. So they literally think that he, at this point, had killed her and two other people. One man named Stephen Harkins, who was found shot to death in his sleeping bag, with his companion, Ruth Cooper, strangled, who was found 2 months after that. Both of them had a tube sock around their neck.
Okay. But he didn't do it.
But here's the kicker. So they thought he did it. However, they could not find him. 20 years later, March 26, 2011, a hiker discovered a partial human skull in the woods off State Route 7 in Lewis County near Mineral, Washington, about a mile away from where Diana's body was found. Analysis revealed that it was Mike and that he was the victim of a homicide himself. 4 murders in the same woods by an unknown person. So the question is, how did Crystal, the daughter, find herself wandering around the Kmart over 30 miles away? Someone drove her there, presumably the killer, and she spent like a 45-minute to an hour drive with this person in their car, with, at this point, she, so young she doesn't remember anymore.
But they know it wasn't him?
They know it wasn't him. It essentially ruled his also a homicide based on the condition of his body.
I was like, did he have the tube sock too? Is this the same person? What? And then how did this person who's just out killing people in the woods miraculously drive the toddler that far? And then did they stop? Were there more murders after that?
Yeah. Were they related to any other serial killings in the area? Like,
oh my god.
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my head around that. Because at first it's like, okay, he did all of these killings, and then like the two he discovered, he's into killing, and then he goes and murders her, and then he takes the toddler the 45 minutes or whatever, and then can't live with himself and gets somebody else to shoot him. But the plausibility of that, I'm dumbfounded.
And I think his head was separated from his body from what I remember seeing. So like, and the thing I think of is either he shot himself and then eventually
shotgun, probably not. Something like longer.
Yeah. But also, like, if he did, like, if he was there dead at that point, why did they not find him? Like, it was only a mile away. So, like, they should have found his body at that point, too.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how deep those woods, dense they are. Were they looking for his body at that point, or were they just looking for him because they assumed that he just murdered her? Were those other murders they were before or after?
4 months before, and they found the husband first and the wife 2 months after that.
And how far apart were they again?
They were about 4 miles apart, I think I said.
Okay, and they found her 2 months later, so they're still looking. So how would they not decide to look for him unless they're like, oh, he's the murderer? But I mean, they found the toddler at that point. They know that the mom's missing. They just think that he's out living his life somewhere and just gave up on him. I don't know. It all seems fishy.
Yeah, I read that and I was like, holy crap! Like, how do you? Boggles my mind how there's no like DNA evidence left behind in these crimes. Like, you'd think like defensive wounds, if anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they're not finding him for a while after, but only a mile away. Wow. I don't get it, but Washington is terrifying. It doesn't
Damn it,
matter how well
Washington.
you know those woods. No, bad news.
That was the first one I read, and I was like, man, this is really, really good. Um, like as far as like creepy goes,
Oh yeah.
obviously tragedy, but so the next story takes place in a different country altogether, South Africa, and this is completely different. This has a little bit of a paranormal mystery to it.
Okay.
Um, so South Africa, October 5th, 2017. A man, I'm not going to pronounce his name right, so it's Tateke Gotsi, had just undergone abdominal surgery and was recovering in a room in a South African town. Um, Everything was going well with the recovery until the nurse stepped out for a few minutes, came back, and he was gone. Just completely disappeared. Couldn't find him anywhere. They searched the hospital, no trace of this patient at all. And keep in mind, he just had stomach surgery, so like he was incapacitated, could not move on his own. 13 days later, his lifeless body was found in the ceiling in an isolated area of the hospital. Despite an investigation and an autopsy carried out, they have no idea what happened to him. Let's see.
Sorry
That's like they want to get involved in the story.
They're outraged, honestly. Outraged. One of them can't even hear so good, so like she can feel it.
So they recovered his body, and he was in the fetal position in the ceiling, the complete opposite side of the hospital. An autopsy was performed, and they discovered that he had been in the ceiling after being killed. So he was dead. He didn't go in the ceiling himself. He was dead when he was put in there. Based on time of death, estimation, and time of disappearance, he was dead when he was put in the ceiling. So who killed him, took his body without anyone else noticing, and stick him in the ceiling on the
Yeah.
opposite side of the hospital?
Did they kill him in his room? The opposite. Did they ever find out where he was killed?
Nope.
Yeah,
There was no
that's
evidence, no blood, no weapons, nothing.
a hospital. I mean, I guess you have access to everything to clean everything up because that they have regular fluid stuff happening. Like I don't know, I've worked at a dental clinic before, and just imagine all the spit and blood everywhere. Like it doesn't matter how clean it is. I yeah, you feel a little grossed out. But yeah, the hospital, like I can imagine they have everything to clean everything up. But there's got to be a lot of people. Or is it like an abandoned wing that he was found in?
Not abandoned, but it was pretty desolate, so it wasn't really well traversed. Wasn't a lot of people going in and out of there.
But then also, how did they get him across the hospital after stomach surgery?
Yeah. No signs of a struggle. And like the nurse was gone, according to her, like just for a few minutes because she went out to get fresh linens. So like not gone for a long time, just a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm like, because if you have multiple people, I can see that happening, but I can't imagine what was this guy involved in outside of his stomach surgery. It feels like it has to be like a mob type situation. I don't know what they have going on in South Africa, but I'm sure they have some scary stuff going on.
There's mobs everywhere. Now, one of the theories that it brings in the paranormal is that he was teleported into the ceiling at some point by some demon or entity of some sort.
Well, then at that point, it could have been aliens. Like, you gotta throw everybody in there, I guess. Yeah, and poor guy. Like, so then did they just want to make him fit? Why did they put him in the fetal position?
Yeah. And okay, so here's the creepiest part. Um, I think it was like 2 months later, they had a similar thing happen at a different hospital, other side of South Africa, so not the same place. A patient went missing after a few minutes of the nurse being gone. Couldn't find the person, and then found them days later dead inside of the ceiling in the fetal position.
I mean, I've heard some like scary hospital stories. Like there's always like a death room is what somebody said to me recently. And then I've heard of like nurses seeing or hearing like patients talking about like there's a man in the corner of the room, like there's make this person go away. They're that big man in the corner is really scary. That is so strange. Has this happened anywhere else in the world? Is this just this one spot in South Africa that had multiple of the same really eerie situation?
I'm kind of curious now if any other countries, any other cities have had this happen, because this seems like such a one-off scenario. Like you wouldn't see it repeated.
Yeah, and then see it again in another place in South Africa, like not the same hospital, because then it'd be like, okay, who's doing this? But still, the same, even just being in the same country, who's doing this? And do these two people have any ties that bring them together, like the whole mob situation? Like, did they have something going on in their life that's a little sinister that a group of people would want to make this happen and make it hush hush?
It makes me think that like the nurse had to have been paid off. Like someone came in and said, "Hey, like he something he did. Maybe I don't know if he did anything, but maybe he upset somebody in his life, and someone paid him off. The nurse off and said, "Hey, just go away for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Don't pay any attention here. I'll pay you $1,000, whatever that is in South African money." And took him out, killed him, and then she made the story up. But I was only gone for a few minutes.
I mean, that's the only plausible thing. I mean, besides teleporting, I guess teleporting could make it make sense because that feels pretty instantaneous.
Yeah.
That's really scary. Like, especially if it's like entity wise, like think of all the small spaces that people could fit in. Like, I know I've been in the little attic space above my room. I'll be thinking about that tonight, staring at that little door.
Is somebody gonna kill me and put me in this, this little door?
Yeah, I've gone up there for like one reason or another during construction. And like my son asks about it sometimes, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing up there but like insulation, probably spiders. So let's just avoid that place. But man, and then thinking about being in a space like that, like even if you're dead first, like I don't know. Ooh.
I gotta ask you, and I asked my brother this the other day, and he said no. No matter what the cost, no matter what the price is, he would say no to this. Would you, for let's say $2 million, if someone said, "Hey, I want to bury you alive, but there are a few conditions here. A, you're guaranteed to survive. B, you have an oxygen tube feeding you oxygen through like 6 feet under into the coffin. So you have oxygen no matter what. You will be alive after 30 minutes to an hour of being in there, but you have to stay in there for 30 minutes to an hour." Would you do that?
No.
No, you could pay
No.
for. Why? You could pay for your trauma counseling for the rest of your life with that money.
Yes, but I'm really claustrophobic. I did scuba diving for a little bit, and I did not like being in the scuba suit and carrying all of that weight. So being under all that, plus, what if they don't actually have the money and it's just like that person that was like torturing people for days because they like love that thing? No, no, I don't believe you. No, I'm like, pay me first. No, I still no. It's a hard.
Okay, extra parameters. You have your cell phone, you have service, and your family is with like your uncle's there, your aunt's there, your mom's there. Everyone that you trust is up there waiting for you. Like,
Well, these people don't have my best interest at heart. you, the things I've said to them. My uncle got rid of a little playhouse that I had when I turned 25. It was my 25th birthday weekend. I went to Sasquatch, a big music festival up in Washington, or the Gorge, I guess, the Oregon still. But he got rid of a little playhouse that the Easter Bunny gave me growing up. And so I said, I'm going to rebuild that with the ashes of my family. They would sacrifice me in a second.
that's fair. That's fair. I think I would do it for $500,000. Like that's the minimum I would take for it.
Wow. I mean, 30 minutes isn't that long of a time, but also like those things when you go to like a Chuck E. Cheese kind of play area thing where it has like the triangles and you go back and forth to go up? That makes me claustrophobic. So, like, probably wouldn't love that. I just don't think I could do it.
That's
Nightmares
fair.
for
So
the
yeah,
rest of your life.
well, yeah, that's true. I would take like I'd probably just take 16 edibles and fall asleep in the entire thing and like just
Yeah,
pass
that's
out.
one way to do it. It's just that also, like, is that tube enough air? Like, they're like, oh, you're guaranteed to live. Like, are you sure? I have anxiety. I would breathe a lot. I ran
Well,
out
that
of
was
air pretty fast, like scuba diving.
so that was in one of the films I watched this week. There was a different haunted house thing where the people ended up being like buried alive. It's like six friends buried alive, each in their own coffin, and like they all were like screaming for help. I'm like, hey, you're wasting oxygen screaming because they can hear you, but they're not letting you out. Like, so you're gonna die quicker because you're wasting all that precious oxygen with your screaming to nobody. When you could do like just start punching the top of the
Also,
casket.
like, temperature wise, is it extra hot? Is it extra cold? I'm kind of a baby about temperature. I just, all around, I'm like, uncomfortable, can't do it.
That's fair. That's fair. That is fair.
How would I go to sleep without box fan on YouTube?
Okay. So, okay, well that's my answer to that.
Yeah, no amount of money for me. Too
No amount
claustrophobic,
of money.
too anxious, but 500,000, you'll do it.
Yeah, I'm a whore for money, so like I would let someone cut my hand off for $500,000.
Okay, which one would you rather do? Cut your hand off or do this experiment or dealer's choice? If there's any sponsors out there, $500,000, and this could be really interesting. 30 minutes to an hour.
Early times whiskey, we're looking at you.
Oh yeah.
This is the mandate that Steph is now claiming.
Yes. Yep. I just I have the right to declare mandate. Here we go.
So maybe that's a bit much for you, but would you let someone put you like you get into this open box with like this open space, not closed,
Okay.
but they would dump like I don't know 10,000 cockroaches on
No,
you?
absolutely not.
What?
No.
But what? Why?
No. I lived in the state of Washington. It was a nightmare. We had cockroaches. It was the worst. I still think I'm suffering from that. Like, I have not lived there for those two homes ago. Cockroaches coming out of the outlets. Oh, no. Mm-mm. Can't make me do it again. I tried to break my lease and they said, you cannot. You must live here for 10 months. So I feel like I've already lived this nightmare and I had to pay for it and nobody paid me. Never again. Not even if there's like one or two occasionally. Like, what is that? Animal Crossing, where you walk into your house and there's like three or four cockroaches and you just go step on them.
I would get buck ass naked in this box of cockroaches for $500,000. Like
For how
you give me that
long?
half as long as they want it. I would do a whole day for 500K, half mil,
Wow.
solve all of my debt. Like bam, ring it up.
Any sponsors looking for a good time? We got you.
You can even cut my
Not
hand
here.
off while the cockroaches are in there. And
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's a big no from me. None of this.
something is wrong with me. Okay.
I'd say so.
Let's so, all right. So unrelated to cockroaches or coffins, this next story is a really, really old story, and it takes place at sea. It is the disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste. Um, November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York City with more than 1,700 barrels of alcohol destined for Italy. On board were 10 people, the captain, his wife, and their 2-year-old child. Over the next 2 weeks, they encountered harsh weather, rough seas, and according to the last log entry, dated November 25th, my birthday, the Mary Celeste was some 6 nautical miles from from the Azores, wherever that is. 10 days later, the vessel was spotted by the British brig De Gracia, who boarded the ship and discovered it completely deserted. Still had supplies on board set to last someone for 6 months. There were luxurious items on board, including a sewing machine and a piano, and the ship was in pretty good shape, besides there being 3 feet of water in the hold, which was, according to them, according to standards, not any reason to panic. And it was seaworthy and able to be, sail the 7 seas or whatever. Adding to the mystery was the fact that the cargo and personal belongings of all of the crew were still on board and undisturbed, although one single longboat, was missing.
Everyone just disappeared.
Everyone disappeared.
Was this a premise for a movie?
I think it was, and I feel like it was also a book.
I feel like maybe I watched that movie like a different timeline ago, for sure.
I feel like it was like called Ghost Ship or something, which sounds about right.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. What happened? Because 10 people, would they even fit on that one little boat?
It's possible, but I feel like a longboat would be pretty much. But even if it was, like, why would they abandon it? Like, what caused them to say, "Screw it, we're out of here"?
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is like, oh, they came up on like an island and they decided to take this little boat to the island, and then the big boat just went away. Like ghost crews stole it. They were like, oh, all the alcohol and supplies we could ever need. But then why wouldn't they bring any of their stuff with them?
Yeah, like, and like, why was it largely that the ship's stock of supplies were really undisturbed? So, like, you wouldn't take anything with you when you left, like no food, no water, nothing.
Unless you were just planning on a really quick trip.
Just a little jaunt over. But also, like, the weirdest part is that if the last log had said that they were facing rough seas, like, you got out in a really rough sea during a storm or whatever, like, that seems so implausible.
Yeah, on a little boat instead of staying on your big boat. That doesn't make sense.
So one of the theories that was brought about was that the captain erroneously believed his ship was taking on too much water and was about to sink. The theory is supported by the fact that the sounding rod, which is used to determine the amount of water in the hold, was discovered on deck, which suggested it had been used just before the ship was abandoned. In addition, one of the ship's pumps showed signs of trouble, and it was disassembled. A faulty reading of the sound rod and the ineffective pump could have led them to abandon the ship. But, like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Yeah, I don't see, if you're rough seas, why would you get on this little boat? Like, I would take my chances on the big boat, and if I'm going to be taken out anyways, like, you have all the supplies to have a good time.
Yeah. Now, the other conspiracy theories, of course, there's a million ones out there, included mutiny, a pirate attack, or even a giant octopus or sea monster attack. Now, I like the idea of a sea monster attacking, but, like, where is the evidence of that? Like, it's intact.
Yeah, everything would be disturbed. Unless it's like more of a spooky sea monster, not like a giant octopus. Because I feel like octopus are supposed to be really smart, but I don't think they really want to mess with you. They mostly want to get away. So I'm gonna rule that one out. But what about like Ghost Crew trying to take over? What if they captured them, tied them up, sent them on their way, but they didn't realize they're not actually there? And so all these supplies just like kind of wander back. Where did they find this boat?
It doesn't say, but I assume like a little bit of ways in the sea. They're heading for Italy, so I assume at some point between New York and Italy, like probably close to the border of England or whatnot.
Okay, so somewhere Europe. Yeah, so man, could have made it. Yeah, I have a lot of theories, but it just seems strange. It seems strange unless they were forced off that boat. But then if they were forced off the boat, why was nothing taken?
Unless they jump timelines.
I mean, there's that.
Yeah, they jumped timelines. They took the boat and they went left, right, and they ended up in a different dimension. They picked up the hitchhiker and they ended up.
But they didn't get to take anything with them. What a bummer. Especially having such a stock boat. I'd be like, yeah, the boat's fine, but like they had everything that they could need, all of their possessions, all of this alcohol. Going into a different timeline, like they could have had a party, all these new friends, but instead they're starting over.
One day when I die and I turn into a ghost, I'm gonna find the crew of this ship, find out what happened, and then if you're still alive, I'm going to find where you are. I will make a Ouija board appear, and then like start
Awesome.
moving it to tell you that what happened.
Awesome. This sounds horrifying. Thank you for the info. I will be having a heart attack, and then all of a sudden I will be joining.
Plot twist. I will give you my somehow created offspring ghost babies. And I'll say, here you go. Here's my gift for spooking you. Here's the gift of 2 ghost babies that you now adopted.
And
They're
now I have to
yours.
raise
Take care
them.
of them. You have to raise
Aw,
them.
thanks. You could have given me the $500,000 for not having any of these crazy adventures of being locked in a box or in a room full of cockroaches. But thanks for the ghost children. Appreciate it. I'll take good care of them. But when they grow up,
Okay. If someone said, "Hey, I'll give you $500,000 to stay awake for 3 days, for 5 days,"
yes.
you would do it.
But
Okay.
also, good luck. I'm real tired these days. You would ask me
They'll
this like
give.
6 months ago. Yes, and I could do it.
Now we know. Sponsors. This is what staff has agreed to. So it is a legally binding contract. You can give her the money, and then we're good.
Yes, I want cash up front though. That will keep me awake for the 5 days.
We'll just give you the shirt that says you can declare a man.
Not again.
Okay. All right.
Not
So
again.
that was spooky. The next story coming back over to the United States, and I'm sure you've heard of this one. Everyone's heard of this one. Elisa Lamb. You familiar with this one?
I don't know.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
tell
Here
me
we
more.
go. I'm kind of excited now. I mean, it's pretty grim, but I'm excited to spook you. Um, January 26th, 2013. Lisa Lamb arrived in LA from China. She had just traveled by Amtrak from San Diego and was headed to Santa Cruz as part of her solo trip around the West Coast. It was supposed to be a getaway from her studies in Vancouver, where she was originally from. I said China, but she's Chinese, but
Oh,
she's from Canada. Oh, Canada. Her family had been wary of her traveling alone in the United States, but as a compromise, she was sure to check in every single day and let them know that she was safe. On January 31st, so 5 days later, she did not contact them, and she was scheduled to check out of the Cecil Hotel in
okay.
LA.
I
You
know
know
the
this one
Cecil
out.
Hotel.
Um, they eventually contacted the police and they searched the premises of the Cecil, but could not find her. Soon after, they released surveillance footage taken from the cameras of the hotel, which is where things get really kind of crazy. The video released shows Elisa Lamb in one of the elevators on the date of her disappearance, acting really, really strange. In the footage, she can be seen stepping into the elevator, pushing all the 4 buttons, and then stepping in and out of the elevator, poking her head out sideways. looking like she's being followed or is scared of something. The last minute of the video shows her standing to the left side of the door, moving her hands in some random gestures. Nobody else was ever captured on the video except for her. So, about a month later, on February 19th, so okay, not a month later, 2 weeks after the video was published, there had been some complaints at the hotel of the water tasting really, really bad and there being low water pressure. They went up to the roof and they found Elisa Lamb in a tank of water, the water supply tank. So no one knows how she got up into that particular uh, water tank because, according to the hotel and people who are familiar with it, it took a lot of force to you have to climb all the way up to the top of this water tower with no one seeing you, and to get it open is a laborious task, and then to get in it is also pretty hard. Like, the gap isn't that big. So how
Yeah.
did she get in the tank in the first place?
And to get somebody else in it, should like somebody have done something to her. I've heard this story a couple of times. I've heard a lot of things about the Cecil Hotel. Like the Night Stalker stayed there. They had one part of the hotel, you'd go up the elevator and go to the hotel part, and then the other part was like low income housing kind of things. And then I heard another story about it that was like, did she play the elevator game? Did she,
Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
knowing or unknowingly, play the elevator game? Because I wouldn't. Like, going into different dimensions by going left, right, or whatever, that sounds like one thing. The elevator game sounds like a nightmare. A nightmare. And from the video footage, it seemed like she was living a nightmare. Like, I'm not sure about what was going on with her in that moment, but it seems like she's scared of something. And then also, yeah, how did she get in there? That it feels very sinister. And that hotel.
So they so the toxicology report did confirm she did have bipolar disorder. And they confirmed that she did have a number of drugs in her system, mainly just the drug to treat her bipolar disorder. But there were no indications of alcohol or other illegal substances in her body. Now, some internet sleuths, or whatever you want to call them, kind of broke down the autopsy report. So, one, Lamb took at least one antidepressant that day. Number two, Lamb took her second antidepressant and mood stabilizer recently, but not on that day. And three, she had not taken her antipsychotic recently. So the conclusion is that she hadn't, because she was bipolar and had depression and didn't take her medication properly, she was going through some kind of manic episode, which apparently during manic episodes you have, I don't want to say super strength, but like the ability to do more than you would otherwise normally do.
Yeah, like the extra energy and whatnot. Yeah, but also, why would that be your thought of climbing up this water tower and trying to get into that versus, like, at that point, just jumping off the hotel? Like, that happens all the time. I don't know about with the Cecil, but like, I know that that's why they have all the railings in Hawaii, because it's like a frequent thing that can happen there. I just, that feels so sinister. And even worse if, like, she hadn't taken her medication and she's already going through something, and then to either like what got a hold of her.
And so it gets a little bit crazier. So, and I hadn't previously read this about her, the story, but according to the hotel manager, she was originally booked in a hostel-style shared room with other people. But however, she had been exhibiting complaints, exhibiting odd behavior from her roommates, according to them, and they forced her to get her own room. So, like, she's going through a manic episode. She's freaking her roommates out. They get their own room. She's on her own now.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like call. I can't understand why she didn't even call her parents. Like that was like a pretty regular thing for her. If she was suffering, like calling somebody for support in some way, shape, or form. And I don't. Yeah, it just seems like what an odd conclusion to come up with. And I think that everybody else seems to come up with the same kind of thing because nobody thought to look there. Like she went missing and like nobody thought to look there. Not even like hotel staff who I'm sure were looking in some fashion around the hotel, like every nook and cranny probably, but who would have thought to go up to the water tower?
And again, I hadn't realized this in the first place, but not only did like all these things have to happen for this to just go right, she also had the elevator only went up to the 15th floor, so she had to go to the 15th floor, take the stairs up to the roof, and then you had to turn off the rooftop alarm. There was an alarm in place that hadn't been triggered. Then go up on the platform where the water tanks were located, and then climb the ladder to get to the main tank. Like there's these steps to get there. So if she was having a manic episode, did someone enable her? Like, did someone turn off the alarm? Did someone ignore the alarm? Did like was there foul play and someone just took advantage of her in her manic state and like coaxed
But
her
then
through
also,
killing herself?
did they know how to turn off the alarm? Um,
Now, it wouldn't. What makes it even sinister, as you have said, you're really familiar with the Cecil Hotel. Um, it has was plagued by 16 different non-natural deaths and unexplained paranormal events. The most famous death associated with the hotel, the Black Dahlia murder.
ah,
Um, so she was murdered there. Uh, the Night Stalker was also there at some point.
that's what I had
Um,
heard. I had not heard about the Black Dahlia.
yeah, and then another serial killer, Australian serial killer Jack Unterweger, also known as the Vienna Strangler, was in the hotel.
Like attracted to this place.
Yeah, so like, what is drawing all these people? All these obviously, Lamb is not a murderer, and Black Dahlia is not a murderer, but like, what is drawing all this like dark energy into this place?
Yeah, or does this dark energy get created here and then distributed out to the world? It's like a hub. I would like to know because like there's all of like that like energy paths and where they cross and that's supposed to be like a crossroads. Like is this a cross?
Or is it the gate of hell?
I mean, it feels that way. Yeah, I've been dangerously close to the Cecil Hotel. I think it's really close to like the old Skid Row. I don't know if that's what they call it anymore, but went down on a mission trip when I was in high school and they had us like handing out bags of chips on Skid Row. Now that I think back on that, like feels very dangerous. Um but whatever. We survived, I guess. Um yeah, and just to think of like how many murders in that area. Like I get it. It's LA area, but I don't think LA's like it can't be that bad that you're all these meeting of murders in one spot.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just that story has always perplexed me. Like, how did she do it? Like, and then to hear the history of like all these other things happening in that same area. Like, is it
Yeah.
just really just cursed, hollowed ground? Like,
And like odd connection here when I was on that mission trip down to LA, we actually were by Echo Park and they were filming the Black Dahlia.
ah,
Like just a weird connection.
that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm like that's I don't know much about that one at all. I've heard a lot about Night Stalker. I mean the documentary series came out not that long ago, it feels like sometime during COVID. So, blackout years. But yeah, so I heard a lot about him and man, it's so strange to have so much darkness in one spot. like as I'm sitting in the dark.
So the last story, wrapping up here, is a really short story. I gotta stop picking these names that I can't pronounce. Hinter Kaifek murders happened in 1922 on a farm in Bavaria, Germany, where 6 residents were murdered with a pickaxe. The victims included the husband and wife, their widowed daughter, Victoria, and Victoria's children, Kazilla and Joseph, and the family's maid, Maria Baumgartner. The 2-year-old was killed in his crib. Maria was killed in her bed, while the rest of the family was then murdered in the barn and stacked on top of one another. Upon discovery, authorities concluded the murderer actually lived on the farm for 6 days after they committed the crime. Even after the family died, the cattle were still being fed, meals were being eaten in the kitchen, neighbors reported seeing smoke from the chimney, and the family dog was tied up to a post when the mailman came on Saturday. The bodies were discovered on the Sunday. What makes the crime even more chilling is that Maria was actually hired the same day she was killed, and she replaced the previous maid who had quit 6 months earlier due to the house being haunted. She reported hearing footsteps in the attic and voices all around, and around the same time the previous maid had quit, the Gruber family had also begun to hear voices in the attic as well. Andreas had noticed a set of house keys had gone missing, an unfamiliar newspaper in the house that he had never seen before, and scratches on the family's tool shed that appeared like someone had tried to pick the lock. And he also reported seeing a pair of unfamiliar footsteps leading from the woods to the back of the house. Despite repeated arrests for suspects, no murderer has ever been found, and the files were closed in 1955, and the house was demolished.
Okay. Did they have somebody secretly living at their house? Like, because the maid thought that it was haunted. It seems plausible to me, but then also like you start thinking about those people that like hid and lived in the crawl spaces and these unfamiliar footsteps. Also, how did they know when the neighbors weren't looking to go tie the dog up so that nobody would see them? Were they doing this at night? But then they had the audacity to make meals in the house, and I don't think ghosts eat your meals. They probably burn the place down.
Yeah, they made meals, they fed the animals,
Yeah,
they
the
just
feeding
took
on the
care of the
animals.
property.
Like, good on them for not getting the animals, but like they also took out a child and then still feeding the animals and feeding themselves.
And like the creepiest part is they stayed in the house where 2 of the people, the 2 kids, were dead. Like they were stayed in, like, that is some next level psychopath crap.
Yeah, like I guess I thought everybody was stacked in the barn, but the kids were still in the house and then they're still like cooking meals and whatnot. And was
Yep.
everyone determined to have died at the same time? Did they try to like fake a family with these kids for a couple days and then they didn't cooperate or something?
Well, I think I'm sure that the dating of deaths was probably unreliable back then, but I think the consensus that they all were killed roughly the same time.
Yeah, that is a creepy story. Whoever did that, yeah, psychopath for sure. I mean, granted, it feels like all of these could be psychopaths, but also like demonic.
And if you're that other maid, like, count your lucky stars that you quit when you did, because you'll be, dead.
Well, yeah, just that the timing was there because, like, I don't think that maid only lasted one day, but this person, the first day, and whoever that was, like, were they just waiting for them to hire another maid? Was it like a surprise that they had another maid, or did they? I bet they knew. Like, it felt very deliberate. Like they knew nobody else was coming to that house for days. But then also, if they were like the people who like live in the attic and or like I don't know, I feel like there's one where like there's like a lady in the cupboard, but you just murdered the family that was feeding you. Like you had a heyday for less than a week, and then you got to go somewhere else. I don't know. It feels demonic or mental.
What I what I think happened was this person was living in the house, and the husband, the father, after all these weird things happened, finally figured out that day that who it was or where they were hiding, found them, confronted them, and then that kind of triggered the whole I'm a murder you, and then your whole family is dead. Like that's what it seems like to me, and the fact that they so crudely stacked the bodies of the adults and just left the kids in their beds is like I don't know, kind of remorseful for the kids. Like leave them in there where they were at peace,
I
in
guess, but
theory, at
also,
peace.
how did they get the three adults? Like one person taking on the three adults? Like I imagine that they were probably scared, but I guess that would trigger the fight or flight with me, and I would either be out that door or I would be fighting. And then things would be a little bit messy, but I guess they had the fire going and food running. Like, who says, who say they didn't clean up too?
Yeah, that was my week. Was like, oh, I'm gonna look up these really creepy, horrific stories and try to give Steph nightmares. That's my goal. Every episode is to give you nightmares.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I will take my magnesium and stare at that attic thing in my room that I just say that there's probably spiders in and insulation, and I will hope that there's not a person up there or something to teleport me up there into a fetal position. Because then I won't be around next week and you'll have to break the news to my uncle. Thank God. Okay, the glass is closed. I was like, hopefully that wasn't just a screen door. You'll have to break the news to him that there is a skeleton in the garage because by that time it will be here.
Well, obviously, I would take the skeleton myself. Like it would be passed on to me.
I mean, he would gladly give it to you. I told them, well, I told my aunt, like, I will change the skeleton's eyes to reflect what kind of mood I have that day. It'll be like a mood ring. It'll be great.
You have to now, like that. You have to.
I already bought it. He told me I couldn't, so I pressed the button just to find out, and it's
Oh
there.
my
They
god.
called me today. They said it's here. You can pick it up anytime by the 5th, and I was like, oh, my thing says in like the next 2 days, so I'll be there in the next 2 days because I don't want this person to be wrong and then it gets sold out from underneath me. Give me a refund of some sort and not give me my skeleton. This has been years in the making.
Oh man, I'm so excited to see it next week. So hopefully, yeah, it goes
His
well, and then
eyes
you
can
can.
glow behind me. Well, it'll be like way up there, but
Yes.
yeah, I will be financially responsible starting now. I don't know if you've seen that show Barry on HBO, with like Bill Hader.
I saw the first season. I've been like meaning to catch up on it. Like, is it already over now, or is it still going?
I'm sure it's over now. I think that I got through the 3rd season maybe, but that was my favorite when he's like, "Okay, starting now." Like, I'm done killing people starting now. I will be financially responsible starting now.
Starting now.
Yeah, this moment. Unless the 7-foot skeleton dog comes available, then after that. But I'll let you know. He's kind of hard to track down right now. But if anybody wants to sponsor, you know what we would both put up with, depending on what you're into. Make sure there's cash up front.
Cash up front. I need that transfer to be processing at least. Stephanie needs the money right away. Mine can be like in the process, like the transfer going, and then you
Did
stick
I
me in the
learn anything
coffin.
from the Kentucky people? That was only 50,000. Get with.
Like I said, there's not much I wouldn't do. You cut off my toe for $50,000. I could.
Wow, that's significantly lowered. The
Well, the
hand is
whole
500,000.
hand.
Yeah,
The whole.
one
I need the
toe.
hand more than I need the toe. The toe, it can be like my pinky toe. I don't really. I mean, I guess I kind of
That
do
is
for
so,
balance, but like I can live with that.
so painful. 50,000? Wow. Yeah.
You know, that would
He's
be
cheap
student
fees.
loan
Like,
debt gone.
wouldn't take a lot. Wouldn't take a lot. So yeah, if anybody has 50,000 and they just want to like mess around, like we got a toe with your name on it.
Well, this was fun. I really enjoyed talking about these spooky stories and finding out what you would do for money.
Yeah,
And the answer is there's not much you would do for money. And the answer is there's a lot I would do for very little money. So
still just waiting for the fall of capitalism. So it would be my luck that I would do something for 500,000. I would have that much trauma to unpack for the rest of my life, and then capitalism would fall. Just be my luck.
it would just be your luck. Well, guys, thank you for listening to us ramble and rant. We appreciate you, and we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.